They called us the young fools of the Outer Rim, a species barely 3 centuries into space travel, stumbling around the galaxy like children playing with fire. The Galactic Council's chambers echoed with their condescending laughter when humanity first requested membership, our crude chemical rockets and primitive fusion drives dismissed as toys compared to their millennium-spanning civilizations. But laughter has a way of dying in the void of space. What the Council didn't understand, what none of them could have predicted, was that humanity's greatest strength wasn't our technology, our diplomacy, or our wisdom. It was something far more dangerous, our absolute inability to know when we're outmatched, combined with a stubbornness that borders on the pathological. They wanted to see what the young fools could do when properly motivated. They were about to find out why you should never dare a species that once split atoms just to see what would happen. Ambassador Sarah Chin stepped into the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, her simple black uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and bioluminescent displays of the alien delegates surrounding her. The massive chamber stretched upward for what seemed like miles, its walls alive with swirling patterns of light that served as both decoration and a complex communication system she couldn't begin to understand. The laughter started immediately. It began with the Zephyrians, tall, crystalline beings whose communication method involved harmonic resonances that translated roughly into what humans would recognize as snickering. The sound was picked up by the Kalari delegation, their 6 arms creating a rippling applause that somehow managed to convey mockery. Soon, the entire assembly of 47 species was participating in what could only be described as the galactic equivalent of schoolyard bullying. The representative from Earth wishes to address the council, announced the speaker, a massive creature whose species name contained sounds human vocal cords couldn't reproduce. The translation software in Sarah's earpiece rendered it simply as the Ancient One. Its voice carried the weight of eons, and, even through translation, managed to convey a sense of barely contained amusement. Sarah walked to the center of the chamber, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. She had prepared for this moment for years, studying every known species' cultural norms, learning their languages, understanding their histories. Earth's finest scientists, diplomats, and xenobiologists had contributed to her briefing materials. She was as ready as any human could be. She was not ready for what came next. Honored delegates, she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustic systems. I come before you today to formally request humanity's admission to the Galactic Council. Earth offers its unique perspectives, its rapidly advancing technology, and its commitment to peaceful cooperation among all sentient species. The silence stretched for several seconds before being broken by something that sounded suspiciously like a snort from the Thackeray delegation. The Ancient One's massive form shifted, bioluminescent patches along its hide pulsing in what Sarah's briefing had indicated was either deep thought or mild indigestion. Young human, it rumbled, your species achieved interstellar flight a mere 273 of your years ago. The youngest current member of this council, the Yelani Confederation, had already been exploring space for over 15,000 years before your first crude rocket left your planet's gravity well. Experience is valuable, Sarah acknowledged, but fresh perspectives can be equally important. Humanity may be young, but we've made remarkable progress in a short time. Our scientists have developed innovative approaches to faster-than-light communication, breakthrough medical technologies, and unique solutions to resource management. A sound erupted from the Kalari section that Sarah's translator couldn't quite process, but the body language was unmistakably dismissive. Ambassador Calfarin, the Kalari representative, rose on his 4 legs, his 6 arms gesturing in complex patterns. Innovations? His voice carried a musical quality that somehow managed to sound condescending. Your species believes that rediscovering fire makes you worthy to sit among those who have mastered the fundamental forces of reality? The chamber filled with what Sarah was beginning to recognize as the galactic equivalent of agreeable murmuring. Perhaps, interrupted Ambassador Vex Colon of the Ethereal Syndicate, the young species would benefit from a demonstration of what true galactic civilization looks like. The ethereal's form was difficult to focus on, part energy, part matter, shifting between states in ways that made Sarah's eyes water. We could show them the hegemony worlds, where entire star systems serve the greater good through perfect harmony. Or the crystal gardens of Zephyr Prime, where thought itself becomes reality through millennia of mental discipline. Or, suggested another voice from the upper galleries, they could witness the great works, the Kalari ring worlds that encircle entire stars, the living ships of the Bio-Syndicate that grow rather than being built, the temporal monuments that exist in 17 dimensions simultaneously. The Ancient One's bioluminescence pulsed more rapidly. An interesting proposal. Perhaps our young friends would appreciate seeing what a truly advanced civilization can accomplish. Its massive head turned toward Sarah, compound eyes reflecting light in patterns she couldn't interpret. Tell us, young human, what would you consider your species' greatest achievement? Sarah felt the weight of every gaze in the chamber. She thought of the prepared answers: humanity's rapid technological advancement, their peaceful resolution of global conflicts, their successful colonization of dozens of worlds. All of which suddenly seemed pathetically small in the face of ring worlds and living spaceships. Our greatest achievement, she said slowly, is that we're still here. The laughter returned, louder this time. The Zephyrian harmonics became almost painful to hear. Still here? The Ancient One's voice carried a new note, not quite mockery, but something close. Young species, every civilization in this chamber has survived for millennia. The Vorthak Empire has weathered 7 galactic epochs. The Synthesis Collective has existed since before your star formed. Mere survival is not an achievement, it is a minimum requirement. Ambassador Esikatolan of the warrior caste stood, his scaled form radiating controlled aggression. Perhaps we should test this achievement. My people would be honored to provide a demonstration of what survival truly means. A small skirmish, nothing serious. Your species could learn much about galactic realities. That seems unnecessarily harsh, interjected the ethereal representative, though its tone suggested the idea held some appeal. Perhaps instead we could design a simple challenge. Nothing beyond what a mature species should easily handle. The Ancient One's patches pulsed in what Sarah was learning to recognize as the galactic equivalent of a grin. The young species speaks of survival as their greatest achievement. Very well. Let us see how they fare when survival becomes challenging. Sarah felt her blood pressure rising. Are you threatening humanity? Threatening? The Ancient One seemed genuinely puzzled. Young human, threats are for enemies. You are not enemies, you are children playing at being adults. We are merely offering an educational opportunity. What kind of opportunity? Sarah's voice was steady, but she could feel the trap closing around her. A trial, if you will, announced Ambassador Keltherin, his 6 arms weaving complex patterns. Your species wishes to join the council? Very well. Complete a task worthy of galactic recognition, and you will have earned the right to be heard again. Fail, and perhaps your species will learn the wisdom of staying in their home system until they are truly ready. The chamber fell silent except for the subtle harmonics of the translation systems. And if we refuse your trial? Sarah asked. The ethereal representative's form shifted, becoming slightly more solid. Then, you leave now, and do not return for at least 1,000 of your years. By then, perhaps you will have matured enough to understand your place in the galaxy. Sarah looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of 47 worlds, each representing civilizations that dwarfed humanity in age, technological advancement, and galactic influence. Every face that was capable of expression showed the same mixture of amusement and disdain. What would this trial involve? The Ancient One's patches pulsed rapidly now, definitely the equivalent of a smile. Oh, nothing too difficult. There is a small matter that has been troubling the Outer Rim territories. A species of particular stubbornness has been resisting integration into galactic civilization. They call themselves the Devourers, though that is merely a translation of their actual name, which contains concepts your language lacks. Ambassador Esikatolan's scales rippled in what might have been excitement. The Devourers consume everything in their path, worlds, stations, entire populations. They have been spreading through the Outer Rim for 70 years now, completely ignoring all attempts at communication or negotiation. 17 separate council expeditions have attempted to make contact, added the ethereal representative. All have resulted in complete loss of ships and crews. The Devourers appear to view all other life forms as merely different varieties of food.
They've consumed 43 worlds, continued the Ancient One. Billions of beings.
Their technology is crude but effective. They appear to specialize in converting matter directly into energy and biomass. Very efficient, if somewhat unrefined.
Sarah's mouth went dry. And you want humanity to, what? Stop them?
Stop them, negotiate with them, convert them to peaceful coexistence. The method matters less than the result, Ambassador Keltheron's arms gestured dismissively. If your species can accomplish what 17 expeditions of advanced civilizations could not, then, perhaps you do indeed belong among the galactic community.
And if we can't?
The Ancient One's form shifted, settling into what appeared to be a more comfortable position. Then, the Outer Rim loses another small, primitive species to the Devourers, and the galaxy learns that humanity was not quite ready for the larger stage. A regrettable but educational outcome. The chamber erupted in what Sarah realized was applause, dozens of different methods of showing approval that somehow harmonized into a symphony of condescension. Sarah took a deep breath, thinking of Earth, of the billions of people who had never asked to be put in this position, of the children who would grow up never knowing about the stars because humanity wasn't deemed worthy.
We accept your trial. The laughter stopped. The Ancient One leaned forward, its massive form suddenly seeming more predatory than paternal. You accept? Just like that? Without consulting your government, your military leaders, your scientists?
I'm authorized to speak for humanity in matters relating to council membership, Sarah replied, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice.
Even in matters that could result in your species' extinction?
Sarah looked up at the assembled representatives of 47 worlds, seeing in their faces the same expression she had seen in human bullies throughout history, the moment when the joke suddenly became real, when the victim was supposed to back down. Especially then, she said. The silence stretched for nearly a minute before the Ancient One spoke again.
Very well.
You have one standard galactic year to resolve the Devourer situation.
All relevant information will be provided to your government within the next planetary rotation.
The trial begins immediately. Sarah nodded and turned to leave, but the Ancient One's voice stopped her. Young human, before you go, are you certain your species understands what they have agreed to? The Devourers are not merely aggressive, they are an extinction event in biological form. They have consumed technologies and civilizations far more advanced than yours. Your crude weapons and primitive tactics will be less than useless against them.
Sarah turned back to face the assembly. You asked what humanity's greatest achievement was. I told you it was survival. But that wasn't the complete answer.
She paused, looking around the chamber at beings who had ruled the galaxy for longer than human civilization had existed.
Our greatest achievement is that we've never learned when to quit.
The silence that followed her as she left the chamber was different from before.
Not quite laughter, not quite mockery. For the first time since humanity had requested admission to the Galactic Council, the assembled representatives of 47 worlds seemed uncertain. Admiral Marcus Rivera stared at the holographic display showing the Devourer fleet's latest position, his weathered face grim in the blue light emanating from the tactical projector. The war room aboard the UES Indomitable buzzed with quiet activity as analysts updated threat assessments and communications officers maintained contact with Earth Command. Sir, the data package from the Galactic Council just finished downloading, reported Lieutenant Commander Park, her fingers dancing across her interface. It's extensive. Put it on the main display, Rivera commanded.
The hologram shifted, showing a three-dimensional map of the Outer Rim territories. Red zones marked Devourer-controlled space, a cancer spreading through the galaxy at an alarming rate. Blue dots indicated Council expeditions, each one ending in the same notation, complete loss of contact. Jesus Christ, whispered Dr. Elena Vasquez, the expedition's chief xenobiologist. They've consumed entire star systems.
The data was overwhelming.
The Devourers appeared to be a biological collective, their individual units ranging from small scouts the size of shuttlecraft to massive bioships larger than human dreadnoughts. They consumed organic matter, metals, energy, essentially anything they encountered, and converted it into more of themselves. Pattern analysis suggests they operate as a hive mind, reported Commander Sarah Kim, the fleet's intelligence officer.
No recorded instances of individual units acting independently.
They appear to view all non-devourer life as food sources.
What about their technology? Rivera asked, studying the footage of devourer bioships.
They were grotesque things, part machine, part living tissue, with weapon systems that seemed to grow rather than being installed.
Crude but
effective, Kim continued. They don't appear to use traditional energy sources. Instead, they convert matter directly into whatever they need: fuel, weapons, new ships.
It's actually remarkably efficient. Rivera nodded grimly.
Humanity had been given an impossible task, and everyone in the room knew it. 17 expeditions of advanced alien civilizations had failed to even establish communication with these things.
What chance did humanity have? Sir, interrupted Communications Officer Chen, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. It's Ambassador Vex of the Ethereal Syndicate.
The ethereal being's shifting form appeared in the hologram, its voice carrying that same condescending tone Sarah Chen had reported from the council chambers.
Greetings, humans.
We thought you might appreciate some additional context regarding your trial. The Devourers have been advancing towards several council member worlds.
The projected timeline for their arrival at the hegemony outer territories is 18 standard months.
Your year-long deadline ensures that either you will resolve this matter, or the problem will resolve itself when there are no humans left to continue the attempt.
The transmission ended, leaving the war room in stunned silence.
They expect us to fail, Rivera said quietly.
This isn't a trial, it's an execution with extra steps.
Dr. Vasquez leaned forward, studying the biological data on the Devourers.
Admiral, there's something here that doesn't make sense. Look at their consumption patterns.
She highlighted several star systems on the display.
The Devourers aren't just randomly consuming everything.
They're selective. They consume organic life first, then refined metals, then energy sources. But they consistently leave behind certain materials, rare earth elements, specific crystalline structures, and, most importantly, they avoid consuming anything with high radiation levels.
Meaning?
Meaning they might not be the mindless consumption machines the Council thinks they are.
This pattern suggests intelligence, planning, maybe even strategy.
Commander Kim pulled up tactical analyses of the failed Council expeditions.
If Dr. Vasquez is right, then every Council expedition approached this wrong. They tried diplomacy first, then overwhelming force.
Both approaches treat the Devourers as either reasonable beings or simple predators.
What if they're neither? Dr. Vasquez asked. What if there's something else entirely?
Rivera studied the data, his mind racing. Humanity's greatest strength had never been superior technology or vast resources. It had been the ability to see problems differently, to find solutions others missed. What do we know about their origin point? He asked. Kim manipulated the display, tracing the Devourers' expansion backward through time. They first appeared in the Kepler 442 system, about 73 years ago. According to Council records, it was a thriving system with 3 inhabited worlds and a major mining operation.
What were they mining? Heavy elements mostly, and...
Kim paused, her expression changing. They were mining radioactive materials.
Lots of them.
The entire operation was focused on uranium, plutonium, and several transuranic elements that only exist near certain types of stars.
Dr. Vasquez's eyes widened. Admiral, what if the Devourers aren't invaders? What if they're refugees? The war room fell silent as the implications sank in. Show me the Kepler 442 system now, Rivera ordered. The display shifted, showing a devastated star system.
The planets were stripped bare, their surfaces scarred by massive excavation operations. But, more importantly, radiation levels throughout the system were off the charts. The mining operation must have triggered something, Dr. Vasquez said, her voice growing excited. Maybe a chain reaction in the planetary cores, maybe they dug too deep and released something.
Either way, this system is now completely uninhabitable for anything that isn't radiation resistant. So the Devourers consume everything except radioactive materials because they can't, Rivera realized.
They're not trying to eat the galaxy, they're trying to find a new home.
But why attack the Council expeditions? Commander Kim asked.
Rivera thought about humanity's own history, about first contact protocols and the disasters that had resulted when different cultures misunderstood each other's intentions. Because, he said slowly, the Council expeditions probably tried to stop them from consuming inhabited worlds.
From the Devourers' perspective, they're fleeing a dying home system, desperately trying to survive, and these alien ships keep showing up to prevent them from eating. Sir, Chen interrupted, we're receiving another transmission. This one's from the Devourer fleet. Everyone in the war room froze.
No previous expedition had reported receiving communications from the Devourers.
Put it through, Rivera commanded. The hologram shifted, showing what appeared to be the bridge of a Devourer bioship.
The beings were unlike anything in humanity's xenobiological databases, roughly humanoid but clearly adapted for high radiation environments. Their leader, if that's what it was, spoke in a series of clicks and subsonic harmonics that the translation software struggled to process.
Greetings, uncertain translation, small ships from New Pattern. We observe you approach the feeding grounds.
We do not wish conflict state, but the hunger void grows large within us. Your ship creatures carry the not poison metals we require.
We propose trade exchange. Rivera looked around the war room at his shocked crew.
The Devourers wanted to negotiate.
Respond, he ordered Chen. Tell them we're willing to discuss terms.
Admiral, Dr. Vasquez whispered urgently, we need to be extremely careful here.
If they're radiation adapted, our standard diplomatic protocols might be interpreted as hostile. Rivera nodded, then faced the transmission. We acknowledge your proposal for trade exchange.
We also observe that your people face hunger void challenges. Perhaps we can discuss solutions that benefit both our species. The Devourer leader's form shifted, organs that might have been eyes focusing on the camera.
You speak of solutions? The previous ship visitors brought only denial weapons.
They sought to prevent necessary feeding. We are different, Rivera said carefully. We come from a young species that understands survival challenges. We would like to understand your hunger void so we can help find ways to satisfy it without creating conflict. The transmission paused for several minutes before the Devourer leader responded. Your words carry different harmony than the previous ship visitors.
We are willing to attempt understanding exchange.
But, know that the hunger void cannot wait indefinitely. Our young ones weaken in the not poisoned ships.
Time pressure grows severe. We understand urgency, Rivera replied. Would you be willing to meet in neutral space to discuss options? Acceptable.
We will select a meeting void with minimal danger radiations for your fragile ship forms.
The transmission ended, leaving the war room in stunned silence. Sir, Commander Kim said finally, did we just accidentally solve the galaxy's biggest crisis? Not solved, Rivera corrected.
But, maybe we found the start of a solution. He turned to Dr. Vasquez.
I need you to put together everything we know about radiation-resistant organisms and high-energy environments.
If the Devourers are refugees from a radiation disaster, there might be ways to help them that don't involve consuming inhabited worlds.
Already on it,
Admiral, she replied, her fingers flying across her interface. There are several uninhabited systems with high natural radiation levels that might be suitable for Devourer habitation. Plus, if we could help them develop artificial radiation sources, they might be able to create suitable environments without consuming entire planets.
Rivera nodded, then turned to his communications officer. Chen, get me a direct line to Earth Command. Priority Alpha.
Yes, sir. As the connection established, Rivera reflected on the irony of the situation. The Galactic Council, with all their advanced technology and millennia of experience, had approached the Devourer crisis as a military problem. They had sent expedition after expedition, each one focused on stopping or destroying what they saw as an existential threat. Humanity, barely 3 centuries into space travel, had approached it as a refugee crisis. Sometimes, Rivera thought, being young and inexperienced was exactly what a situation needed.
"Admiral," Chen announced, "Earth Command is standing by." "Patch me through to the Secretary General," Rivera commanded. "We need to discuss a slight change in mission parameters." As he waited for the connection, Rivera looked at the tactical display showing the Devourer fleet's position.
Somewhere in that collection of bioships were millions of beings who had lost their home world and were desperately trying to find a way to survive.
The Galactic Council had seen monsters.
Humanity saw neighbors who needed help. The difference, Rivera suspected, was about to shake more than a few assumptions about which species was truly ready for galactic civilization. 6 months later, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood once again in the Grand Assembly Hall of the Galactic Council, but this time she wasn't alone. Beside her stood Hivesinger Kethvar of the Devourer Collective, their radiation-adapted form contained within a specialized environmental suit that allowed them to survive in the Council's standard atmosphere.
The laughter that had greeted Sarah's first appearance was notably absent.
Instead, the chamber buzzed with confused murmuring as delegates tried to understand how the supposedly extinct human expedition had not only survived their encounter with the Devourers, but brought one of them to the Council chambers. The Ancient One's bioluminescent patches pulsed in rapid, agitated patterns.
"Young human, we were expecting either news of your species' heroic victory or confirmation of their noble sacrifice. We were not expecting this."
"What exactly is this?" demanded Ambassador S.A.K. Tolan, his scale form radiating tension.
"Are you presenting us with a captured Devourer specimen?" Sarah felt Kethvar shift beside her, the Devourer's translation implant converting their harmonic response into audible speech.
"I am Hivesinger Kethvar, speaker for the scattered clusters. I come not as captive, but as representative of my people in formal negotiations with the human delegation."
The silence that followed could have been measured in geological epochs. Ambassador Keltheron's 6 arms gestured in patterns that Sarah's cultural briefings identified as extreme agitation. Negotiations? The Devourers don't negotiate, they consume. 17 expeditions have confirmed this. They are biological weapons, not beings capable of discourse.
Perhaps, Sarah interjected smoothly, the problem was not with the Devourer's capacity for discourse, but with how previous expeditions approached the conversation. She activated a holographic projector, filling the center of the chamber with a 3-dimensional map of the Outer Rim territories. But this map looked very different from the one she had studied 6 months earlier. The spreading red zones of Devourer-controlled space had been replaced with a complex network of green, blue, and amber indicators. "Ladies, gentlemen, and esteemed beings," Sarah began, "I present the solution to your Devourer crisis. The scattered clusters, as they call themselves, are not invaders or mindless consumers. They are refugees from one of the greatest ecological disasters in galactic history." The display zoomed in on the Kepler 442 system, showing detailed scans of the devastation. 73 years ago, intensive mining operations in this system triggered a cascade failure in the planetary cores. The resulting radiation release made their home worlds uninhabitable for most forms of life, but the scattered clusters had already adapted to high radiation environments as part of their natural evolution.
Kethvar's harmonic voice filled the chamber.
"The great hunger came upon us when the poison fire spread through our home clusters. Our young ones sickened, our food sources withered, our very ships began to fail. We were forced to scatter across the void, seeking new feeding grounds to sustain our people."
But why consume inhabited worlds? The Ancient One's voice carried a note of genuine curiosity.
Surely uninhabited systems would have provided the resources you needed without triggering conflict. The question touched on the heart of the misunderstanding that had led to 70 years of conflict. Sarah highlighted several star systems on the display, showing the peculiar pattern of Devourer consumption. "The scattered clusters don't consume inhabited worlds," she explained. "They consume the specific materials they need to survive, organic compounds that can be processed in high radiation environments, heavy metals for shielding, and energy sources that remain stable in radioactive conditions.
The pattern appears random to us because we don't understand their biological requirements."
Dr. Elena Vasquez's research had been revolutionary. The Devourers weren't just radiation resistant, they were radiation dependent.
Their entire biological system required specific isotopes and energy signatures that could only be found in certain types of environments. The mining disaster at Kepler 442 had destroyed their primary source of these materials, forcing them into a desperate search for alternatives. The consumption of inhabited worlds, Cathvar explained, was never intentional. We sought only the deep metals and energy crystals that exist beneath surface layers. That organic forms dwelt on these worlds was unknown to us until the ship visitors began attacking our harvesting clusters. Ambassador Vexcolin's ethereal form shifted through several states of matter before solidifying enough to speak. Even if we accept this explanation, the fact remains that billions of beings died as a result of their activities. Yes, Sarah acknowledged solemnly. And the scattered clusters deeply regret those losses. Which is why they've agreed to comprehensive reparations as part of our negotiated settlement. She activated another section of the holographic display, showing detailed agreements that had taken months of careful negotiation. The scattered clusters have agreed to relocate their primary populations to uninhabited high-radiation systems that we've identified as suitable for their biological needs. In exchange, they're offering technological and biological expertise that could revolutionize how we approach environmental restoration. The chamber erupted in confused chittering and harmonic discussions as delegates tried to process what they were hearing. Technological expertise? Ambassador S.C.K. Tolan's voice dripped skepticism. From beings who consume worlds? Cathvar's response carried harmonics that suggested amusement. Honored Scalebearer, my people have perfected the art of matter conversion and biological adaptation over millions of years. We can transform dead worlds into living ecosystems, convert toxic environments into habitable ones, and process raw materials with efficiency that your mechanical systems cannot match. Sarah nodded, activating footage from the past 6 months of joint human-devourer operations. The scattered clusters have already begun demonstrating their capabilities. They've restored 3 previously dead worlds in the Outer Rim, converted a toxic waste system into a functioning biosphere, and developed new methods for processing radioactive materials that could solve waste disposal problems throughout the galaxy. The Ancient One leaned forward, its massive form casting shadows across the chamber floor. You're asking us to believe that in 6 months, your species has solved a problem that stumped the Council for 70 years? No, Sarah replied. I'm asking you to believe that sometimes the solution to a problem isn't to fight it, but to understand it. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. Every Council expedition approached the scattered clusters as a military threat to be neutralized. Humanity approached them as fellow beings facing a crisis. The difference in outcomes speaks for itself. Commander Sarah Kim's intelligence analysis had been crucial to understanding why previous expeditions had failed so completely. The Council species, with their advanced technologies and long lifespans, thought in terms of permanence and control. They saw the Devourer expansion as a threat to be stopped rather than a crisis to be resolved. Humanity, still learning its place in the galaxy, had approached the situation with fresh eyes and fewer preconceptions. The formal agreement, Sarah continued, includes several key provisions. First, the scattered clusters will relocate their primary populations to designated high-radiation systems within the next 2 standard years. Second, they will provide technological assistance for environmental restoration projects throughout Council space. Third, they will share their matter conversion expertise to help address resource scarcity in developing systems. And, in return? The Ancient One asked. In return, the Council recognizes the scattered clusters as a legitimate species with full rights to their designated territories. The systems we've identified for their relocation are currently uninhabited but rich in the radioactive materials they need for survival. It's a win-win arrangement. Cathvar's harmonic voice added depth to the proposal. We also offer to share our knowledge of biological adaptation. Many worlds in Council space suffer from environmental damage that our techniques could repair. We see this as an opportunity to transform from wandering consumers to contributing members of galactic civilization. The chamber fell into discussions that Sarah's cultural training told her were the Council equivalent of heated debate. Species-specific languages filled the air as delegates conferred among themselves, trying to process the implications of what they were hearing. Finally, the Ancient One called for order. young human, this proposal is unexpected. If genuine, it represents a diplomatic achievement of remarkable magnitude. However, we must ask, what does humanity gain from this arrangement? Sarah smiled.
Humanity gains the recognition that we successfully completed the trial you set for us. We resolved the Devourer crisis not through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through understanding and cooperation. We demonstrated that our species has something valuable to contribute to galactic civilization. And we gain friends, she added, nodding toward Kethvar. The scattered clusters have agreed to share their biological and technological expertise with humanity as well. Our species may be young, but we're fast learners. The negotiations that followed took 3 days. Representatives from each council species raised concerns, asked detailed questions about the proposed arrangements, and demanded extensive documentation of the human devourer agreements. Several times, the discussions became heated enough that Sarah worried the entire deal might collapse. But, gradually, a consensus emerged. The solution was too elegant, too beneficial to all parties, to be rejected out of the narrow-mindedness that had characterized previous approaches. On the 4th day, the Ancient One called for a formal vote. All those in favor of recognizing the agreement between humanity and the scattered clusters, and accepting both species as full members of the Galactic Council? The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. 31 species voted in favor, 12 voted against, and 4 abstained. As the results were announced, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders that she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. Humanity had not only survived its trial, they had revolutionized galactic diplomacy in the process. The Ancient One's patches pulsed in what Sarah now recognized as respectful acknowledgement. Ambassador Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome humanity and the scattered clusters as our newest member species. Your approach to this crisis has been educational. As Sarah and Kethvar left the chamber together, the Devourer's harmonic voice carried notes of something that might have been gratitude. The human approach to problem-solving is unlike any we have encountered, Kethvar observed. Other species see obstacles to be overcome or enemies to be defeated. Humans see puzzles to be solved and neighbors to be helped. Sarah considered this as they walked through the corridors of the council station, passing representatives of species that spanned the galaxy. Maybe that's because we're still new to all this. We haven't had time to develop assumptions about how things should work. Or perhaps, Kethvar suggested, humanity's youth is precisely what the galaxy needs. Fresh perspectives often reveal solutions that experience overlooks. That evening, as Sarah composed her report to Earth Command, she reflected on the events of the past year. The Galactic Council had intended to teach humanity a lesson about their place in the galaxy. Instead, they had learned something about the value of approaching problems with curiosity rather than preconceptions. The Council's taunts had indeed echoed across the galaxy. But humanity's response had done more than shake the stars, it had opened new possibilities for understanding between species that had never tried to see beyond their differences. And, sometimes, Sarah realized, that was exactly what the galaxy needed most.